Hey everyone, and welcome to Facebook Live on this beautiful Friday morning. We've got a special guest today on Facebook Live. This is Marcus. He's a 9-week-old puppy, and I'm hoping he's going to be well behaved because he's going to help me with this week's Facebook Live because we're talking new laws in the pet industry. Now, if you recall, around this time last year, we did a Facebook Live and we were talking. Excuse me. Settle. You know what they say about working with children and animals. Okay. This time last year, we did a Facebook Live, and I was talking about pets in the law, and I discussed something called Oscar's Law, which was coming in now. This was being drafted at the time; it was on its way. That law is now in, so I'd like to use this Facebook Live This is not working. Settle down, mister. I would like to use this Facebook Live to talk to you about the Pet Exchange Register, which is one of the main things that's come out of that new legislation. So, if you're buying a puppy or a kitten, or you're buying a cat or a dog, you're going to see in advertising a number at the bottom of each advertising. It'll be prefixed with a couple of letters, so it might say MB and a few numbers. That's a Pet Exchange Register source number. And anybody that's advertising has to include this number, okay? It's the new laws. It came in 1st of July 2019, so it's been in now for a bit over 6 months. So you may have even noticed it by now. But here's the important thing, and this is why we're also talking Facebook Live. If you've got a puppy or a kitten, a cat or a dog that you have not bred, so you might not be a breeder, but you've had a change of circumstance, and as a result, you're having to sell or give that puppy, kitten, cat or dog away. I'm not giving you away, it's okay. You're going to need a number as well. So you're going to need to listen to this because if you don't include that number, you can have a penalty of up to 5 penalty units, which at the moment would be a fine of around $800, a bit more maybe. So it's quite a decent fine that if you don't comply with these new laws. The theory behind it is to make animals, domestic animals, a bit more traceable and increase sort of like responsible pet ownership and those sort of things, responsible breeding practices. But it goes much further than that. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about these numbers. What is the Pet Exchange Register for a start? Pet Exchange Register, that simple. It's a database. It's statewide in Victoria. And I believe there's probably, if there's not already, there's similar databases coming in for the rest of Australia. But if you're not in Victoria, just stay tuned in your own state. But this is Victoria specific. It was brought in by the Andrews government. Now, on this register, anybody who is already a commercial animal business, which will be registered with their council as such, they will automatically be getting a number. Their number will be prefixed with BR. Now, that's how you'll know that. If you are part of what we call an applicable organisation, for example, if you've got dogs or puppies and you're part of the ANKC, or Australian National Kennel Council, and you are a member of Dogs Victoria, and you have 10 or less breeding dogs, then you fall under the category of a recreational breeder. And it's the same thing for cats. So if you're a member of your cat organisation, I believe it's called the Feline Control Council, although they may have had a recent name change, but it's the same sort of thing. Now, again, you're then covered as a recreational breeder. You don't have to be a domestic animal business under the new legislation, and you can register as a recreational breeder. Your PER source number will be prefixed with RB, recreational breeder, as opposed to BR, which is business registration, because if you've got a domestic animal business, it's classified as a business. What if you've got 1 or 2 dogs? Say, for example, you've got a couple of dogs in your yard and you just wanted to have a litter. It happens. You're classed as a micro breeder. So you're not part of an applicable organisation and you're not someone that's a full-time breeding and doing all those sort of things, but you've had a litter, well, you're going to have to apply as a micro breeder. So that's 2 or less breeding dogs or cats in your care, and you're not an applicable organisation. If you have more than 2 dogs or cats used for breeding, you're not part of an applicable organisation, and you are not a domestic animal business registered, you're breaching the legislation completely, and you're going to need to get some advice on that. So you're breaking the law. But hopefully all you guys out there won't be. And if you're just wanting to give away your dog or cat because your circumstances have changed, you're also going to need to register for this number. And you can do that, you can self-register via the website. So, how do you do it? So let's talk about how we do it. You need to go to the Animal Welfare Victoria website. There's a lot of information on that website about the new PER, Pet Exchange Register, and source numbers. So you can also be guided by that, and it's in fairly easy to read language. From there, you need to follow the links, and you need to apply for a source number. Now, if you apply for a source number, you'll start out by having to include some information about your circumstances. For example, when I applied for my number, I put that I had 10 or less breeding dogs, and that I was a member of Dogs Victoria, a applicable organisation, so I automatically went to the registration application for a recreational breeder. So the same thing will happen if you're a micro breeder or such things. Now, the other important thing is if you're involved in a rescue organisation or foster care, yes, that's right, you will need to you will need to speak to your organisation, because the rescue organisation will be signed up for their own number. Now, with the rescue organisations, they don't have to include as many details in their application as you would if you're a recreational breeder, commercial business, or if you are a micro breeder. So that's important to know. And again, it's the organisation, so you'll need to speak with them, but you will also need a number, and it will also need to be advertised if you're advertising dogs or cats for sale or rehoming. So where are we? Right. So we've got our application. Now we're having to fill in our details. You're going to need to provide some sort of information, so usually some form of photo ID to prove who you are, and you're going to need your paperwork, because you're going to need to go through what dogs or cats you have in your care, their council numbers, registration numbers, also their microchip numbers. Yes, that's right, you have both. And also, in the case of females, how many litters they've had, and whether or not they're spayed and neutered. So you might still, you might have 5 dogs, but you might only be breeding with 1 dog or cat, and you're not helping me. Settle down. Settle. Yes, so you would still need to include all 5 dogs or cats, but you would just put in, say, 3 of them are spay or neuter, and the 2 that are not will be settle down. Alright, so where were we? Yes. So yes, you include all those informations, and then you will be given your number. Yep. You need to include this number on all of your advertising that you do, and you need to include this on any advertisement. You need to include that. And remember, this is also additional to including your microchip numbers. So if you're advertising your dog, cat, puppy or kitten, you still need to include your microchip number, and you will need to include your PER number, your source number. If you are buying a dog, cat, puppy, kitten, and you want to check up this number, because all it's going to be is a number down the bottom, you can actually, again, go to the Animal Welfare Victoria website, follow the links, and you can look up a source number. Now, if you look up the source number, you'll find out the source number owner's name, because remember, it might be an organisation. It'll be their name, their municipal council, and that the number is still valid. You've got the option when you have when you apply for your source number, you've got the option to have your telephone and email address information also visible to the public if they search the register. But you're not always going to see that because that's an option that the owner of the source number makes when they are doing their application. And it doesn't mean anything if you can't see their phone number or their email address. That's purely personal choice. So that's what you can do. So when you're doing your due diligence and you're looking up for your owner of a puppy or a kitten that you're wanting to get, that's one more thing that you can do to see if there's any red flags jumping out. Although again, we would still advise to do all your due diligence with finding out about your breeder, speaking to them and seeing if they've got a website, going to visit their premises, seeing where the puppies or kittens are raised, seeing how the adults are treated, where the animals are whelped, and all those sort of things, talking to the breeder about what they do and with the animals, if they're involved in any sports or any organisations, what their aim is for breeding and those sort of things, how often they breed, all those things that you want to see, and what happens to their dogs or their cats when they finish breeding and those sort of things. So it's all very, very important, as well as your PER source number. Your PER source number is not going to be able to show you all of that, so this is just something else you can do as well, not instead of. Yeah. Some interesting facts. If you are simply saying that you're a breeder of dogs or cats, you do not need to include a source number. You don't. If you are just saying that your dog or your cat is pregnant and you're expecting puppies or kittens, you don't need a source number. So you can put up anywhere that you're a breeder and that you're expecting a litter, and you won't need a source number and you won't need to advertise a source number. But if you wanted to then say 3 puppies available or 2 kittens available, you will need a source number. And most importantly, because a lot of people won't realise this, even if you're giving away your 8-year-old Labrador because you've had to move into a rental, you're advertising that, you're going to need to sign up to get a source number through the website and include that on your ad. If you do not have to advertise, for example, if you're giving your 8-year-old Labrador to a family friend, or people know you're a breeder and you've had people contacting you and saying, hey, we'd like a puppy or we'd like a kitten, and so you've got their details and then you call them and say, hey, we've got puppies or kittens available, you're not advertising, so you don't need a source number. But if you've got to put up and say, hey, an ad saying we've got 4 puppies available, you're going to need to include source number, you're going to include microchip and all that information. Yes, that's right. Will you settle down? Settle down. Yeah, good boy. Good boy. As with rescue organisations, you also need to be showing their source numbers. Are you calm? Are you calm? Good boy. So, for example, if I was selling little Marcus here, and I was advertising him, I would need to include. It's okay. I'm just using it as a hypothetical, as an example. All right. I would need to include my source number in any advertisements. But if I was giving him to my best friend, or if I had somebody ask me, know I was a breeder, and say, "Hey, have you got a puppy available?" and I said, "Oh yes, I've got a boy," I wouldn't need a source number for that. That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Good boy. I know. And the same thing with breeders of cats and kittens. So I believe I've covered most of the stuff you need to know in the new legislation with regard to the Pet Exchange Register and source numbers. I think I've made it fairly clear to everybody who needs a source number, how you get a source number, and what you do with that source number. Despite the fact that my co-host here has been a little bit fidgety and hasn't really been assisting very much. Yeah, you haven't. Admit it. You haven't. Yeah? You're still a good boy. You're still cute. So, where can you go for more information? Well, you can always go to the Animal Welfare Victoria website. They have some handy information, just like A4 information flyers you can have a read of, very simple to read, and they can give you more information in very simple English. If you're a member of an applicable organisation, you can contact them and you can ask them, and they will be on top of the new legislation. And if all else fails and you haven't got that sort of support, you can always ask your local council animal laws. Just make sure your dogs or cats are registered before you go up to them, because otherwise it's opening up a whole new can of worms, because there's other legislation that you have to have your dogs and cats registered, and if they're not, you're going to be in trouble if you're breaching the law. Yeah, that's right. So that's what you can do. Now, the last thing I need to tell you before we finish, can I, Marcus, this is important. Okay, this is important. Good boy. The last thing is keep an eye out and watch this space, because there is a proposal at the moment before that the state government have put up before Parliament to actually have, as of 1st of July 2020, which is going to be here before we know it, actually having a requirement that you need a source number to microchip your dog or cat, puppy or kitten. Now, of course, it's required by law that any puppies or kittens are microchipped before they are sold. And so if this comes in, if this proposal gets up, you're going to need to, I know, you are going to need to have a source number if you're going just to be taking your dog, cat, puppy or kitten to be microchipped. So that's something that's also, because that's going to completely change requirements. It pretty much means that most people that are involved in anything like that is going to need a source number, because they're going to need to be microchipping, even if they're not advertising dogs or puppies, cats or kittens for sale. Have you had enough? Yeah? Okay. Good boy. So at this point, I would like to thank my co-host Marcus here, who I'm about to put down and they can have a run around because he's getting himself very upset. All right. Okay. Say that back. Okay. If you do have to see a lawyer about any of this sort of thing, the other important thing is to look for a lawyer who has got some experience in this area or some experience in animal law, because it's a bit of a specialist area, and it's one of those things that it's not necessarily something that's part of the fabric of what we do. So if you need advice on it, and you know of a solicitor that is involved in this sort of thing, you're probably going to get more accurate and more concise advice from them than some, because they're involved in this sort of thing. So that's also something to keep in mind. But really, something like this, and it hurts me to say this, but something like this, probably as long as you know what's required, and you can do a little bit of, you can just look up your own information online. It's quite self-explanatory. It's quite simple to go through the process, as long as you've got all your dogs or cats registered, you're complying with the requirements as to the number of dogs or cats you have breeding and those sort of things. Then you can probably manage to do it without having to go to the expense of legal action. And if you don't comply and you do get a fine, there's if you breach the if you breach the law, there's not a lot we can do. So, but this is really, if you follow this information and you have a look on the website and you follow along with the information that they have available on that website, you're most likely going to be okay. You're going to be able to do this. If you're part of an applicable organisation, you should always draw on that resource, because it's a valuable resource and they will know a lot about what's going on. They'll have their finger on the pulse, and they should also be sending you updates and those sort of things. Finally, if you are having to give your dog or cat away, you also need to know this information because it's not something that is generally going to occur to you. And if you are looking for a dog, cat, puppy or kitten and you do notice that there's these funny numbers at the bottom of all the advertisements, that's what it is, that's what it's meant to do, and that's how you can go and you can look it up. So you can then see a little bit more information about the person or the organisation that you're getting your new best friend from. So the effectiveness of the register, it's too early to really be able to make any comment on that and whether it's going to be successful in achieving its goal. But I suppose again, wait and see and watch this space. So that's about all from me and all from Marcus, who you can't see him now, but he's now just having a lovely time running around on the floor down here. I hope you found this Facebook Live interesting. It's a little bit different to what we normally do insofar as we normally doing, rules and separation and what this means and what that means and how to buy a business and all those sort of things. So it's a little bit different, but it's still important in this area, and it's something that, once you know the knowledge, you know the knowledge. Now, you can always come back and to our Facebook page and you can access this Facebook Live in our videos, and in doing so for example, you think, oh yeah, that's interesting, and then it doesn't become apparent to you that you require this information for another 3 months or whatever, you can come back, you can access this video, and you can just have another listen and make sure that you're up with what's going on. Otherwise, I hope you found it enjoyable, and I hope you have found it informative, and who knows, it may even help you win your next round of Trivial Pursuit. So until next time, have a lovely afternoon, have an enjoyable weekend, and in this environment, of course, always do everything you can to stay safe. Remember, it is not possible for you to contract any sort of virus that's going around from your dogs or cats, so you are perfectly safe, and so are they. And until next time, have fun, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for listening.